Besties, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about money. Sometime last year I actually said I was going to make a video on how much we had to pay, or how much our medical aid had to pay for BONOLO'S hospital stay, including the NICU, the doctors, and all of that fun stuff. So I think today's the day and I'm ready to share that. It took me a long time to get to this point just because I've been fighting so stupidly hard with the hospital. For some reason, the caseworker who was handling BONOLO'S case, apparently when kids are in the NICU, that's their system. When kids are in the NICU, they get case managers who are in constant comms with the medical aid in terms of hospital codes, doctors codes, and all of that fun stuff. She went and did her own thing and it just messed up BONOLO'S account. It was just such a mess. I'm grateful I picked it up when I did, and I'm grateful I asked questions when I did, because had I not done that, I don't even know where we'd be by now. They probably would be holding us responsible and liable for paying all those fees, because wow, it was a mess. First of all, she never did create a authorization number or an account for BONOLO, so the whole time they were billing BONOLO as if it was me, until I was like, this doesn't make sense, and Kenneth was like, this doesn't make sense, what's happening? When I asked her, she was like, yeah, we're gonna do it. So eventually she did that. And then the second thing was that she kept changing her codes. She would say today she was in the NICU, tomorrow she was someplace else, and tomorrow she was there, and they're like, this doesn't make sense. How do you move from being like critical patient to being a regular patient and then being a critical patient again? It was just such a mess. It was a mess, but thought that it's finally done. The dust has settled, everybody's got their money, and I can finally share with you guys exactly how much it cost. I wasn't necessarily holding out because I don't know, some crazy reason. The only reason why I was holding out honestly was because I wanted to make sure that all the bills are paid and that we got all the bills, so that I can give you guys a pretty clear idea of how much it cost. And let me tell you, it is intense. Each time I make a memory, then I'll try to make it with you. BONOLO was in a private hospital. We actually used Linkwood. It's like a two hospital kind of thing where there's Linksfield and it is Linkwood. Linkwood is for the maternity portion of the hospital, and so you give birth there, you do your antenatal appointments there, and all of that fun stuff. Thank goodness that hospital happened to have a NICU. To be honest, when I was looking around for hospitals, I never did consider like ever needing a NICU. The only thing we used to talk about was in case of emergency, we would be able to have a C-section at Genesis, because that's where I wanted to go. That's where Peanut and KB were born. We'd always just think about if we have to have an emergency C-section, they are well equipped for C-sections. I never in a million years thought, do they have a NICU? I never thought I would need a NICU, to be quite honest. And there I was, 27th of Feb, having a baby at 32 weeks, and she was obviously needing a NICU. I would advise any mom who's pregnant right now, looking into hospitals, shopping around, and all of that fun stuff, just try and find out. I mean, from my experience with BONOLO'S birth, I would say it's always a good idea to look, even if it's just one question like, how's your NICU facilities? If anything was to happen with baby, would we be able to get baby where baby needs to be on time? I would have hated to have to be in hospital and she has to be helicoptered someplace else. Just try and ask those questions. It sucks. It's a question no mother has to ask, but if I knew then what I know now, I totally would ask that. But tubes are tight, the factory is closed. I'm not about to have babies anymore unless I adopt or we do some sort of IVF situation. But me falling pregnant naturally again, not gonna happen, not on my watch. I am rambling, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started with this video. A few days ago I put up a story on my Instagram and I asked moms who've had babies in the NICU to tell me how long their baby stayed in the NICU and how much they paid. I wanted to get a general feel of what the price range is like, so I'm gonna go ahead and read through some of the responses right here. Baby stayed in the NICU for 4 days. The baby was a 34-weeker, so baby was born at 34 weeks, and the bill was 65,000 rand. Baby stayed in the NICU for 10 days. The bill, including the C-section and her 3-day hospital stay, was 100,000. Baby was in the NICU for 15 days. The bill was 180,000 rand. Another one says 9 days free of charge. I'm grateful. Twin boys, 18 days in the NICU. It was a government hospital, so it was completely free. Another one says around 88,000 rand to 90k for 9 days, and this was back in 2014. My niece stayed for 2 whole months. The bill was so high, medical aid didn't even pay all of it, but SARS came through, claimed the money, then got even more back. That's fantastic. I should start looking up at my SARS situation, because I didn't. Then again, I'm being greedy. I don't need anything from SARS. My mom says 12 days, a NICU and high care, and it was about 150,000. I'm carrying twins and hoping they won't spend time in the NICU. I do too. I do. The nice thing with twin pregnancies is that you can plan ahead. So if they have to give you like steroid shots so that they can accelerate the baby's lung development, they can do that. So they don't have to spend time in the NICU, which I love with twin pregnancies. It's very different when it's an emergency, like in my case where I was 32 weeks pregnant. I went into random labor for whatever reason, and even the steroid shots that I got, they didn't even have time to accelerate Bonolo's lungs growth. Does that make sense? Yeah. They didn't have enough time to kick in so that her lungs can develop, so she doesn't have to spend all that much time in the NICU. Just make sure that it's something that you discuss with your gynae to make sure that, you know, it's planned for and all of that fun stuff. The one thing you need to note though is that this is mostly private hospitals. There's a huge gap and a huge difference between private hospitals and public hospitals. Majority of the services you get from a public hospital or a government hospital are completely free. And you know the sad reality is we've grown up to become the society who believes that public healthcare is not necessarily best. They're not all bad, and majority of the services you get there are completely free of charge, which I think is amazing. I ended up in Linkwood, which I'm not complaining about. It's just their service could be so much better. The billing department, their billing is ridiculous. They handed us over to debt collectors because they said we hadn't paid the $850 of admission fee, which we paid. You cannot be admitted to the hospital without paying that $850. Whether it's an emergency, whether it's not an emergency, that has to be paid before you are wheeled up to your room. And we paid that, but guess what they did? They allocated it to the wrong account, and so they couldn't identify the money. They didn't know whose money that was. They didn't know where our money went, and so they said we hadn't paid. Regardless of how many times we told them that we did, they still just handed us over. I was so mad. I was so livid. And do you think they would send an apology? No, that's not their problem. I'm telling you, Bonolo'S birth was a whole new learning experience. Private healthcare, public healthcare, two different things, two very, very far apart when it comes to price ranges. Bonolo was in the NICU for exactly 20, how many days? I don't know, for exactly 4 weeks. She was 2 days shy of a month to be in the NICU, 27 days. Basically, I had to fight my booty off for her to get home. It was just before lockdown. During that time, she was in high care. She was in ICU for 8.8 days. I don't know why there's a 0.8. I don't know how they count their days, but there's a 0.8 there. And she was then in high care for 18 days, like 18 days. And it was that frustrating period for me because I'm like, the baby's in the NICU, but she doesn't necessarily need the NICU anymore. She wouldn't take the bottle. It wasn't because she needed any crazy medical interventions. She was just being tube fed because she wasn't taking the bottle. She wasn't like closed in the incubator anymore. It was like a drop top now. She was living her best life in there, but they wouldn't let her go because they said she has to be taking the bottle before she comes home. I feel like this is like a therapy session for me because I haven't vented to anybody else besides Daisy about this, and so bear with me when I'm getting off course a little bit. This whole bill, Bonolo'S NICU stay in its entirety was 374,000 rand, 641 rand 82 cents. It was ridiculously expensive. They break it down into 4 different categories. So they have ward fees, the drugs, the medicines that they're administering to her, non-drug charges, I'm not too sure what that means, and then they had dispensary drugs. So these are, I suppose, the prescriptions from the pediatrician and other specialists that were going in there to see her. I do need to say that this bill changed completely once they had updated her, what do you call this? I'm gonna go ahead and actually just edit up right now so that I can let you guys know. When all this was done after the fighting, there was an outstanding amount of 29,850. So I'm gonna add that to this bill. Basically, Bonolo'S whole entire NICU stay bill was 400,000 for, wait, what? How do you call this? 404,000 rand and 491 rand 0.82 cents, which is ridiculous. The first few days when Bonolo needed oxygen support was straight up just in the incubator all day, every day. And there was a time where she had to go under the jaundice light because her bilirubin levels were a little bit, they were not too high, but they said because she's a preemie, it's best to just treat it before it gets out of control. And since she was in there the whole time, she wasn't necessarily getting any sun, and so we just had to treat it the artificial way, which broke my heart because messed up with her complexion, and homegirl's skin is giving so much problems right now. But another story for another day. That first week we're basically charged 19,118 rand 30 cents every single day for 8.5 days straight, which made the total for that first week to be 162,000 rand 505 rand 55 cents. Ridiculous amount of money. The neonatal high care unit, which basically means she still needs attention, medical attention, but she's not necessarily needing like your oxygen support. She still needs to be cared for. She still needed some medicine. She was still getting some vitamins through an IV and all of that fun stuff. It may be different for your baby. They might be needing something completely different, or they might never need that at all. We had to give Bonolo those vitamins through an IV because formula messed up with her intestine, with her tummy, that she started bleeding in her tummy, and so we had to give her the vitamins directly into her veins until she's completely healed. And then we started giving her feeds again on a Monday. While she was in the neonatal high care, she was in there for 18 days. The rate for that one was 10,682 rand 90 cents. Now if you multiply that by 18, it makes it 192 rand 240. Funny enough, my hospital stay was what, 36,000 rand. The gynae I paid roughly around, in fact I paid 18,000 because I was also paying the additional 3,000 rand to get my tubes tied. Bonolo's pediatrician's fees were basically 85,750 rand 70 cents. Bonolo's birth in its whole entirety basically cost us 552,000 rand 800 rand and 70 cents. Let's just say more than half a mil, basically. More than half a mil includes her hospital stay, my hospital stay, the gynae's fees, the guy who does the spinal blocks fees, Bonolo's pediatrician's fees, 850 for admissions. I'm very grateful that CAMF covered everything, like they covered everything to the T. And there's a lady who was so patient and so helpful with getting the whole mess resolved. Like, I kid you not, Bonolo's account was only settled properly last year, November. She came home in March. She was born in Feb and everything was settled in November, which was ridiculous. Generally, from my bill that I just told you guys, 404,000 rand, that's Bonolo's NICU stay. That is just for the NICU. And all the other moms that have responded, I can safely say the general rate for private hospital for a NICU stay for a baby per day is roughly about 8,000, 9,000. You might get maybe some that are going for about 7,000, 8,000, but that's generally around where they're going. If you are pregnant, you don't have medical aid, planning to have a baby in the NICU is something that no mother should have to plan for. No parents should have to go through that. But should you have your baby be in the NICU and you're in that moment, just start thinking about that, obviously, while the baby's in the NICU. The nice thing is they don't make you pay beforehand. They will treat your baby and then you will pay after that. Just because you can't pay upfront for a NICU stay, you can only pay at the end once you know that baby has been here for 10 days or however many days, and then you can get that invoice. I hope this is going to be helpful to somebody. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Like I always say, it's easier to be the girl who asked too many questions than to be one who assumed a whole lot of stuff and turned out to be incorrect assumptions. Don't go into debt bringing a baby into this world, because babies are hella expensive. Don't be afraid to ask for a discount, especially if you're a cash patient. Like if you don't have a medical aid, hospitals are always open for discounts, but you have to ask for it. They're not going to hand it to you. CAMF actually negotiated a discount of 5,454 rand and 34 cents. Anyway, the battle has been fought, the war's been won, all is good, but that's essentially how much you would be looking at paying if you end up having a baby in the NICU, which I hope you don't. For every single thing they use on your baby, they will charge you for that, and that's why the bill will accumulate quickly. And then when it comes to things like oxygen support, that's really expensive. Find out from your medical aid what it is they'd be covering if baby has to be in the NICU, what happens if everything is in an emergency and you didn't have that authorization code or number. Anyway, that's that for today. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. Thumbs it up if you did. Don't forget to subscribe. Let me know in the comment section down below what else you'd like to see, what topic you'd like covered. And until then, we'll catch you besties on our next video. Bye.
Tonight we're running on the right track.